everybody, and welcome to Eden Fractal. We're here at our 85th meeting. I'm with Eric and Rosmari and Tadas and the mission of Eden. We've been talking about agriculture and lots of exciting things, and we have some exciting stuff today. So thanks so much for being here. Thanks so much for joining us. Hope you all enjoy. And of course, if anybody wants to jump in and say anything, then feel free if you want to say hello. Otherwise, I can just give a quick presentation and lead us into the games for today. Eden Fractal is a community that creates innovative game shows and tools. We're also working on the best way to define the vision and mission of Eden Fractal. Actually, we've defined the vision lately. You can learn at edenfractal.com, and we believe that all communities and organizations have the tools and methods to make the best decision-making fast, fair, and fun. We have a page where you can learn about our vision, what we've been discussing lately, and you can join our weekly events where we host consensus games to optimize decision-making and cooperate and all sorts of cool stuff. And of course, we make videos. We made over 80 videos where you can learn and take part and enjoy all the cool stuff we're doing, as well as the tools that we're building too. So I think people who have been watching are familiar with that. EdenFractal.com, check it out if you want to learn more. I encourage you to also invite friends and join our weekly events every Wednesday at 16 UTC, which you can find at edenfractal.com or lou.ma/edenfractal. And of course, you can watch our videos at edenfractal.com/videos, where you can see recent videos of us making our vision and our mission and so forth, as well as all the earlier videos and all sorts of awesome stuff that the community's been up to for over a year and a half now. We put out our first tweet for a while. The Eden Creators account did. Thanks to Rosmari for working on this. So invite everyone to join and follow Eden Creators, Eden Fractal on X as well to stay up to date with what we're doing. It's kind of a little summary of what I just said right there, but it's a way that you can share and help promote the work that we're doing and invite friends and so forth to help all communities optimize decision making. What we do now is we play a game called Agendas, where basically we vote with, or anybody can propose a topic, and then people can vote with respect points they earned in respect games to figure out what we're going to discuss. And what I propose for today is a mission megaphone game. So this is basically a pretty similar thing what we did to last week. Basically, the goal is to create our mission statement like we've been working on for the past couple of weeks. And I figure we can rank each other's contributions to the discussion for the past 2 weeks rather than the current discussion, because we didn't do it last week. If, of course, we want to just talk and not have the game today, we can always save it for later and just talk. But I figure that could be a cool way to do it for the past 2 weeks. And then a new idea that came up with is the idea of the megaphone mod, which is like a game mod, which gives each player 3 megaphones that enable uninterrupted speech for 1 minute anytime during the game. Just like always, if we reach consensus by the end, we can reach respect, and we can also upvote a mission statement by the end of the meeting. I have more details in the consortium post, and then I put together like a cool little image and megaphone moderator for the meeting, and then there's also more details on the page where I shared too. I think the way it can work is that basically if somebody wants to speak, you can hold your hand up like that, and that just like lets people know, hold up kind of like a megaphone, and that lets people know that like, okay, they're using it, and then you just give them the chance to speak, so anybody can speak anytime. Kind of trying out something new here. We'll see how it goes. I figure it could be fun and also make it more accessible for players to play and to jump in the conversation anytime if you're really inspired. So of course people can jump in anytime, but that just makes it like very clear that people can move on or just change the topic at any point. Also, there's a mission games Notion page that we've been working on for the past couple of weeks. We've been working in T84 mission game and T83 mission game, which is where we had our previous discussions, and a bunch of other missions that we had shared in the previous meetings and the chats and so forth. You could see thoughts from Eric and Tadas and Rosmari and Nuno, and you can explore those. Lots of good ideas here, and we're working on refining it. And so I put together one for 85, and I'll share this link in the chat. I put together a mission that Eric wrote in the chat right after the meeting yesterday, and I also worked on a mission yesterday too and put it over here. And I tried doing a different format with like this kind of table in Notion as well. So I'll share the link if anyone wants to just write here, and I have it also in the screen, or actually I'll move it over here so you'll be able to see it throughout the event as well. But yeah, basically I figured this could be a way that we can kind of make it more visual. So we could start, I suppose that can be the end of the presentation. And I can stop the screen share if it's helpful, then I can read out the mission idea that I came out with, or Eric can read out the mission idea he came up with, or we could go and like, take turns like that, or really take it anyway. But I suppose I'll just stop the presentation here and see what everybody thinks. Hope you've all enjoyed, and I'm looking forward to today's event.
An interesting might be to put a box in the middle. Like you have the 4 boxes. If somehow we put a box in the middle, then we could build one as we pull from the surrounding boxes.
That's true. I don't know if it could really work with Notion. That's one of the aspects that I liked about Figma. But Figma, it's a little bit more flexible visually, and so you could add that in Figma, but in Notion, I don't think you can. And I decided to try it in Notion today just because people have to sign up for Figma, and so it's a little bit of a learning curve, and we already use Notion. So I mean, we could.
Mhm.
I have two extra boxes here at the bottom, so I don't know if we could put it in the middle easily. Maybe there's a way, but one thing we could do is just put it at the bottom, and we could like call this like I don't know, like consensus or something,
Just
or
just an idea. I mean, even if you put a row between, if you had four, it's hard if you put a row, and I don't know if you can merge rows. That would be another way to do it.
yeah, that is a good
Put,
idea.
put one in the middle and merge it. Just thinking out loud.
Okay, well, yeah, thanks for the suggestion, and we can figure out some way to do it, I'm sure. But I suppose for now, this is what we have. And if anyone wants to try to modify it in different ways, then feel free to do so. Maybe somebody knows how to organize a better Notion than me. And for next week, I could try getting together Figma or something like that. That could be a little more accessible. But in any case, I'll share this in the Telegram group right now. So anybody can access it. I'll share it in the live chat. And then anybody can write there. And then I'll also share the one that I wrote yesterday too. If you want, I can say that out loud. I'd like to at some point. I'll share that in the Telegram chat too. And once again, I tried fixing the blurriness on the screen, but it was kind of difficult to do. I tried updating all my software, but I didn't yet get it. Still kind of blurry, so my apologies for that. But I'm working on that, and we'll work to get it working better as soon as possible. But if it's not big enough or anything, then let me know, and I can make it bigger. Does anybody have any thoughts about the best way to proceed? If you'd like, I can read out the mission and just provide a bit of context for the mission I provided. I was listening to the to last week's meeting that we had discussing the mission, and I found it very inspiring. So thank you very much. And then well, the mission that I created here, I basically looked at Eric's most recent post in Telegram, um, and maybe I'll just read that unless you want to read it out, Eric. But for anybody listening, it might be helpful for us to read it. So Eric, did you want to read out your mission perhaps, and then I'll read out my mission? Or Eric just got disconnected, I think. So yeah, I'll just go ahead for anybody who's listening then. So yeah, basically Eric had written this mission in the chat, and then it just inspired me to write my own kind of version of it that takes into the ideas of Eric's mission, as well as a lot of suggestions that Tadas gave and Rosmari gave last week. I know Tadas had a lot of ideas too, so I'm interested to hear what Tadas and Rosmari think about this, of course. But Eric had written, our mission is to develop and disseminate effective decision-making processes and tools across society through collaborative research, development, and implementation with communities, ensuring universally applicable consensus-building workflows. And the version I wrote that's kind of based on that is our mission is to enhance decision-making throughout society by creating consensus games and promoting their adoption with practical research, open source development, joyful education, and playful collaboration. And if you'd like, I can explain more about that. I see Tadas unmuted, so I'll pass on to you, Tadas.
Yeah, so uh, I like in Eric's version and mine version the part about collaboration with communities. Well, I don't know if I would keep it in Dan in your version. I don't see it.
Yes, that's correct. So I was thinking playful collaboration covers that because, well, for one thing, I was like, well, should it just focus on a collaboration with communities or should it also be organizations too? Because in the vision we had said all communities and organizations, and there might be some people who see themselves as organizations, whereas if we put our mission out and say just communities, then they might be like, oh, well, I guess that doesn't involve us as much, something like that. And my thinking is collaboration makes it shorter, so we don't have to say communities and organizations, or even say with communities, because collaboration implies uh, it implies both collaboration with communities, collaboration with organizations, and collaboration with each other too, which I think is also helpful because one of the things we mostly do right now is collaborate with each other and anybody who joins our event as individuals, really. So I think that like I really like the idea of collaborating with communities and collaborating with organizations to help them with these tools and processing consensus games. But my thinking was also we can make it a little bit shorter and also be more inclusive of organizations and just like interpersonal collaboration by just saying collaboration in general.
Mm-hmm. But for me, okay, I see your point. Maybe it's a good point. But this statement promoting their adoption through practical research, open source development, like the way I see it, we first do research, do development, and then promote. Here it's kind of like other way around. To promote adoption, we do research and development.
Well, one way you could look at it is that it's enhancing decision making throughout society by creating consensus games and promoting their adoption with practical research, open source development, and so forth. And in that case, creating consensus games is first, and you're still you're creating consensus games with practical research and open source development, basically.
Right.
I know this is kind of new too. I meant to share this in the chat because I just kind of finished writing it earlier today. So I meant to share in the chat so people could see it earlier. So if you want to take some time just to think it over, or if you have any other ideas, or perhaps Rosmari and Tadas, if you wanted to write your versions, I know that both of you recently had some good versions here,
Will
and
you,
so I shared the Notion page there. So feel free to edit if you want. Or
will you put the link to the Notion page again? I bounced out and came back, and my chat didn't pick it up.
yeah, sure. I just put it in the Telegram chat and the live chat, but I'll put it in the Zoom chat as well.
No, I'll go to Telegram chat. That's great.
Okay. Sounds good. I can also say one of the main differences with what I proposed here, as opposed to the version that Eric and Tadas had proposed, is that I included consensus games, and I did make it more like playful, joyful. I use those kinds of words. I think that's pretty important. I think that was, I remember at the end of last week's session, Eric was saying how I totally forgot what I was going to say there. Oh, Eric was asking, what are we missing from the versions that Eric and Tadas had proposed? And I felt like that was something that was missing. And I think that is like taking the feedback about what everybody said about the respect game, maybe that changes or whatever. I think what is core to our work and what all of our products will be are consensus games, basically. And maybe we can call it something different if we want to call it social games, something like that. But I think consensus games works. And I think that it makes sense that the vision says like all communities and organizations has to have the tools and methods available, but like those tools and methods, basically those are consensus games, basically, I think. And each of our products can be different kinds of consensus games. The respect game can be one and others can be there as well. So that was like one kind of like major little addition, but otherwise I took a lot of what Eric wrote and then try to add in those parts and also try to make it a bit more concise.
I still think that's a big topic, whether you call things games. I'm not saying they're not. I'm just saying you really need to think about what you're trying to impact in somebody's mind when you say, oh, we're playing games. I just think that needs to be thought through carefully because you want to create an impact. And so it's always, well, what impact are you creating with whatever words you use? What impact are you creating with those words? So if you're going to use consensus games, and people should read that and go, oh, I get it. I know what this is. So do you have to then go explain it, or is it clear?
Yep, that's a good point. And I was thinking about this too. I wrote a note to myself or something I could perhaps remember to say during this meeting, and I wrote like why consensus games in this mission. And there is several different reasons. So one, I appreciate the fact that most people don't know what consensus games are. Like most people have never heard that phrase. I didn't as of like a few years ago. It's not really a popular term. But one, I think it is fairly intuitive. Like most people understand what consensus is. And when you think about like what could be a consensus game, it's a game where people reach agreement and so forth, because people understand consensus is agreement. I think it might be something that we really want to promote and make sure that people are understanding. Like consensus games, like it might be like a core offering that even if people don't totally understand it, that it just
Well,
a new word that we
Dan,
want to introduce.
Dan, do you want to do serious business here, or do you want to play a game? And I'm just being devil's advocate because I'm into this thing. I'm just saying, I'm just imagining. Here's what I always imagine. I've got this group that I want to help, and I'm going to approach them. And so I always worry about what the first thing out of my mouth is, because it has to be in the right order. You know, I wouldn't go to Rosmari and say, if I were single and we were single, and say, Rosmari, would you like to have coffee so we can discuss what a great husband I'd be and what it would be like to get married? Well, that may be something down the road. That's really not a first good level approach, because it'd be like, hey, forget you. So if you approach somebody and say, I'm here to teach you how to play games, then I'm not saying that's bad, but then you have to say what we do is we introduce play into the workplace. So there needs to be more, I think, prep and structure in there to go with that concept. Because when you hit people cold with that, they're like, oh, games are something you do for fun, not for serious work. So you have to at least think about what the prejudices and you know, when you call things about building rapport is different than what most people think. What you're doing is you're cutting through all the bugs on the window to get to the core conversation you need to have. So if you're putting bugs on the window, you have to be very careful. So if you're going to throw a bug, you have to have the window cleaner right with it, or else after that goes in their mind, they go, oh, games, I'm out. And by the way, people make up their minds in milliseconds. And then coming back is really hard. You know, after somebody's made up their mind about you, coming back, because then you're telling them they're wrong and you're arguing with them. I dealt this a lot, like I had a company with 4 25-year-old kids and a 24-year-old, or then it was a 24-year-old CEO. So you can imagine if I put that CEO in front of people, what do people think immediately? Oh, too young. So I had to kill that in the first fraction of a second. You know, how do you overcome that in the first thing, that we've got a bunch of young youth in the company? How do you turn that into a good thing and kill? Because after they decide, oh, that's CEO, yeah, he's too young to know anything, then that's all they're going to be thinking about. Doesn't matter what else you say. So you clear that bug out the window, you can't move on. So it's best not to put a bug in there unless you've got the bug wiper. And I may be wrong. People may go, oh, that's great. Because I think the concept of making work fun, which is what we put into our mission, making decision-making fun, effective and fun, I think that's important. When you throw the word games, then you have to be prepared to for that. We have to ask ourselves, is that going to be a bug on the window? And do we have to wipe it off before they'll talk to us anymore? Am I making sense?
Yeah, and I would ask that maybe playful and maybe joyful, maybe they serve the same function as game. Like,
yeah.
So we only need those.
And I just say fun. Fun is a word everybody knows. Joyful adds a lot more content in there. So, do you want to talk about joy in level 1? Maybe.
Okay, thanks for the feedback. I can respond to a lot of these things. I wrote notes and I have lots of thoughts. I don't know if perhaps Rosemary, you want to share any first thoughts on this and discussion so far? It looks like you're pretty deep in thought. Or Tadas, you have any other ideas, or should I go ahead and respond? Eric made a lot of great points there, and Tadas did too. So I'm happy to go next if nobody else wants to go next.
You can go. I am still making up my mind.
Okay, sounds good. Well, I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts. On the last thing that Eric said about fun and joyful, joyful is a lot deeper than fun. I actually asked ChatGPT about this earlier, and I do think that's like a worthy distinction, that it's something that it's not just a moment of fun, but it's something that makes your life better in general. You enjoy it. Um, I think that with consensus games, for one thing, we are surrounding it with more practical language, and language that explains, hey, it's not just games for fun. Our mission is to enhance decision making throughout society by creating consensus games and promoting their adoption with practical research, open source development, joyful education, playful collaboration. So it's not just, hey, our mission is to create games or create fun games. We're surrounding it with these practical topics. And I'd say we have had successful pilots with that have shown product market fit, that have gotten really good feedback. So Eden Fractal, we've been calling consensus games for, I don't know, maybe half a year, something like that. And people have generally enjoyed that. Not everybody has. There has been some people, like I remember Patrick was like, they're not games, and so forth. But a lot of people have really liked them. In Optimism Fractal, we've been curating a page for Optimism Fractal feedback of timestamps and messages that people have shared. And these are people who have never heard of like the Respect game at all before Optimism Fractal came along, never heard of consensus games at all, but people get it. People are like, ooh, the Respect game. I like this game. Oh, it's a game that's fun, but I also see we're doing something serious here. We're learning to cooperate better and stuff like that. So I think based on our feedback, people do like the idea of consensus games. It's a good way to explain it.
Okay.
Um,
But we need to make sure that we're not doing the self-licking ice cream cone, which is talk about ourselves about things we've already bought into. Take us away from that and say, who do we want to help? Is it people that already have a mission to make the world a better place, joyful, and those are the only people we work with? Because optimism is already there. But pick somebody else you might want to help. Humane Society for the Humane Society. I just pulled that out there. Let's say want to help Humane Society. Okay, does that fit there? Does it have the same result? And the answer is I don't know. But I'm used to I'm used to in marketing, picking a target, adding all our own thoughts and joy things in there and putting it out there and say, you have to be like us because we've decided that. We all agree. You just have to be careful of saying, oh, the people I've talked to really like that because they're people I attract with myself and what I do. Therefore, those, and you could say that we're going for a market that is on that way, but you have to ask yourself who you're trying to influence. And all you've done is test this out with people you've already brought in that are already like that. You can limit your market that way. I'm just saying, take a step back. Anytime you use these words and things, take a step back. You're very, very passionate. And one of the challenges for passionate people like us is we tend to already buy into that world. And then we view everything from that lens. So it's a superpower, but it's also a weakness.
well, thank you, Eric, for the excellent feedback. Of course, Tadas and Rosmari, if you want to jump in at any point, feel free whenever you're ready. And I have some more responses as well. I suppose first off, I could say I'm open to, like Tadas said, like removing playful and joyful. That could be an option. It could also make it shorter. And then in that case, we could just maybe make it just, I was kind of going with a verb, noun, verb, noun, verb, noun, or adjective, noun, like practical research, adjective, noun, open source development. But it could even be practical research, development, education, collaboration, which would make it shorter. So that's an idea, because I mean, I do like open source, and featuring that means we could keep it, but just make it shorter for shorter sake, and not emphasizing playful and joyful so much. That would maybe make it more open to more people. And then another thing I'd say in response to what you were saying there, Eric, is gaming is one of the fastest growing markets in the world. There's billions of people who play games. It's growing like far faster. If you've ever seen the stats of it, I have an article at I think edencreators.com/GameFi, where it shows like some of the stats. This is particularly GameFi in the Web3 space, but just games in general, like they're way outpacing the growth of, say, of movies or music and so forth, as well as a lot of other just non-entertainment industries. And There's also another article that I've published before, edencreators.com/games, and it cites some research. There's a book called Wonderland: How Play Made the Modern World. I remember you had asked me about it, and you said you were going to order the book or something. I don't know if you ever did, but there's that book and Finite Games and Infinite Games, and it's like really about a philosophy of life, about how game can help people, and also how most things throughout history often start out as game.
I'm not arguing about the value of games, not at all. That's not what I'm at again. I'm asked people, there's this concept that I created, as far as I know, that I call fact to SAC, FAQ to SAQ. And I learned this when doing marketing, is I found that most people, when they approach this new concept, they don't know the right questions. So they go back with what they know. So what I learned is I couldn't start with where I am. I had to start with where they are. So how do you move them from the frequently asked questions and move them to the should ask questions? Because they're not asking, how many of them are asking, how do I use games to improve my decision making? How much is that? Go look that up, type that in. Using games for decision making, we can go to Chat GPT and ask it to analyze the market and say, that is. So you could say, well, entertainment's big. What's big right now? Reality TV shows. So what's the intersection between reality TV show and corporate America? Not much, but reality TV show is really popular. And I can show you articles where reality TV show is really popular and social media is really possible. So what we need to add is reality TV and social media network in the business environment. Well, that doesn't necessarily track. So saying something is really popular and really good and really positive doesn't mean, from a marketing point of view, that they're ready for that message. So does that mean you get rid of that message? No. The question is that message layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, level 4? If it's layer 1, that means you go, okay, I get it. So you want to start with, okay, I get what you're talking about. Tell me more. Because if you're going where they don't get it, it's that Maya concept. Then they say, oh, yeah, I'm not listening anymore. I just put it, that's just a bug on the window for me. I can't get past that. And so that's the real question. And I don't know. You do that by testing with your test market. And that means after we get all this stuff done, we test it by bringing in people in the target markets to say, hey, can you come on our chat and can we talk to you about that? So, you get real feedback. The one thing that I learned in marketing for a lot of years is we sit in rooms and we come up with this stuff that's just going to be great. And we roll it out and we're going, well, why don't they get it? We think it's great. So just because we think it's great, and that's the way we think, it's a really hard problem to stop saying, oh yeah, it's going to be great. And some stuff we came up with great was, but other stuff we thought was great had no traction at all. And we're just, we had to go look at the data, why isn't this working? And oh, well, we thought this, but it turns out that's not what they think. We were selling something and we thought it was the greatest thing in the world, and we got 80 sales. And we went back, looked at it. The next day we made one little tweak, sold hundreds and hundreds with that one little tweak, because we went into that with our biases and what we thought.
Good point, Eric. I really appreciate your wisdom. I see Tadas and
I'm just not as sure as you are that they're there yet. Maybe if they're true, I'll be happy. I'm just not as positive as you are that they're already there. Games I'm in, joy I'm in, let's do that. Not that there aren't tons of, that could be a market. There are tons of small business that are all based on joy, enhancement, empowerment. That's a whole group of businesses and organizations and groups that's what they're all about. And if that's where we want to say that's our target market, then I think we've got a bigger play. But that's really key here is who are we approaching? Are we approaching people who, like us, want to save the world? Are we approaching people who just want to make a better decision, make more money, make something more efficient, something like that? I think that's an important question.
Yeah, I think that terms consensus building workflows or consensus building processes or mechanisms, those are more general terms and more general than consensus games. And consensus game will have consensus building workflow in it. So I'm thinking that it's simply safer and to talk about consensus
And
building.
the other thing to think about is a lot of words we're using are solidly in the vision, but when you go to mission, that's your recipe. So you have to be a lot more careful when you go into mission, because that's something you hand to somebody else and say, all right, now you do it. If you gave it to them and they said, you could do this now, they could go, oh, I know what to do. So for example, in the mission, vision, enhance, okay. Mission, when you use words enhance, you have to say, well, what does that mean? Is it clear what enhance means? Maybe yes, maybe no. If we brought somebody new into this and we gave them this mission, they would know right what to do. They wouldn't have to go have these discussions and say, oh, well, what do you mean enhance? Or you show it and everybody goes, oh yeah, I know what that means. That's the real question you have to ask yourself. If you gave this to somebody, and again, this is an exercise I used to do with my students when they came up with these, because we'd have people leave the room, come in, we'd hand them something someone came up with and go, okay, tell me what you would do. And I can tell you more often than not, it's not what people go, how can you think that? How do you get that from here? That doesn't even make sense. So you just have to look at it from that idea is you've never seen this before. Somebody gives it to you. What are you going to do? What are they going to do? Is it what you want them to do? I mean, that's why I like words in the mission, like develop and disseminate. Okay, that's pretty clear. Effective decision-making process is clear. Tools, action, society, collaboration. Yes, so those are pretty clear. I think when you try to say, oh, we need to flower this up because we need to add some words to make it sound cooler and uplifting and all that, you just have to be careful. Less careful in the vision, though, because vision is, where are we going? What is the world like? And but when you start breaking it down to mission, and then when you get to product, it has to be very specific. So we're kind of going from vision to mission products. We're doing product has to be, you can't say an iPad is an enhancement tool to take you to the next level. You're like, what? No, an iPad. Oh, be clear. The mission has to be more clear in the vision, or the vision has to be more conceptual, more creative. Where are we going? The mission has to be more specific, and the product has to be very specific. So we're going to specificity.
Eric, do you think that maybe at the product level we could brand our
absolutely
games as games?
Yeah, absolutely. Here's a new game because it fits this mission. It's the vision. So yeah, down. And what's nice about that is you can try those to see whether they succeed or fail. If it doesn't, they're very easy to say, well, that didn't work. Let's try rebranding that. Let's change. Let's do that. So you do a lot of your test work at the product level. That's where you come up with specifics. When I was in the corporate world, we had 40 vertical markets. So down at the product level, we were moving all the time with 40 different groups internationally, by the way, all over the world. But, we almost never messed with our vision and mission, not so much. I mean, it changed, but the vision changes very slowly, if at all. The mission changes more rapidly, but the products, sometimes they change in mid-release. Oh, that didn't work. So we get lots of feedback, with our products.
Cool, I agree, and looking forward to scoping out our products as well as our target market. These are good, lots of good questions that we're asking here. Tadas, I see you wrote a mission a couple minutes ago in the Zoom chat. Do you want me to maybe put that on the Notion, or do you want to do that? And do you want to maybe read that loud or explain your thinking? Or I can also respond to some of the thoughts that have been raised, or if Rosemary, you're ready to chime in with some thoughts.
Yeah, I would put it, it's the old mission from previous meeting, but I would put it just for comparison. The same.
In the Tadas box.
Okay.
Because it still has some, it's this mission of mine stresses some things that are missing in, I think, in other too, because, for example, replicating that would replicable at all levels of society is not the same as spread throughout society, or how it's
Yeah, throughout.
then can you zoom out a little bit?
Yeah, sure. The way I had written it was throughout society, and Eric had written something similar. I think that was ensuring applicable consensus building workflows universally. And
Yeah.
Eric had written across society. I wrote throughout society.
Yeah, so for me, replicable at all levels of society implies a fractal kind of thing, because in the sense that you could do it at a small group level, at a larger community, and even bigger.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking of that too. Like I do like the way you have that worded workable all levels of society for that fractal nature, but I don't know if it's necessary to be in the mission, because it does make it considerably longer. And I mean, going back to the idea about like how it would orient people, I guess it does specifically orient people to do stuff that's easily replicable in many other places as well. But I don't know if that needs to be specifically stated in the mission. And I went with throughout just because it made it shorter. And I think that conveys a lot of the same idea, but you're right, it doesn't convey all the idea.
But see, decision making which is spread throughout society, that could be kind of understood as one centralized governance system, for example, which controls everything. It could be misunderstood like that, although, yeah, maybe.
I'm not sure if people. I think you could probably say the same thing about would be replicable all of society.
Well, replication, it's different. It's not like you could have a one decision making process which is spread throughout the whole world, let's say, and yeah, that would be one process. Or you could have one process which is replicable, so many processes all replicated from one original one. So we are you could have multiple processes which are independent, but they can be replicated.
Right.
I
Makes
don't know,
sense.
it's a small nuance, but for me, replicable at all levels, it has a nice implication.
Okay. Well, I think I'm happy either way with throughout or rock below all levels. I do like what Tadas is saying. It is a little bit longer, but I think it does add to it. So I'd be happy to change that. Curious if Rosemary or Eric want to jump in. I can also bring it back to there's several different points that I'd written some bullet points about that I can respond to in the prior conversation as well. So I suppose I should go ahead. So for one thing, Tasha had mentioned workflow seems like safer than games, and to me it seems like there's a potential that you also lose a lot of people by classifying as work, because generally people like have had enough work, or like I don't know, that's kind of a general statement, but a lot of people are like, oh, I people enjoy games, And if you say, oh, here's a workflow, it's like there's a million productivity apps that you can learn and workflows to improve your work, but it's like you kind of have enough of them to some extent because work, it seems more effortful than a game, which seems more enjoyable. So I'd say there's a possibility that if we use workflow, then we make it seem more like work like play. Mechanisms or tools sounds better than workflow to me. That sounds a lot better than workflow to me. So I'm open to that potentially because but then again, workflow could be good too. I agree with Eric's points about is it clear what enhance means? That's something that I think should be worth considering if it's specific enough. I think it's really good to decide our products, and I think consensus games will be successful products. I think most people enjoy playing games. Those are from the stats, and just in general, all of us have enjoyed it. And I think that
But it's not a matter whether people enjoy playing games, because you know what else people enjoy? Happy hour. So we could put that in there because we could have happy hour decision making because people would really like happy hour. So it's not whether they like it. It's if you gave this to somebody, what would they do? And would they understand that? Is it clear? This is we're moving from where we're going to what we're doing to get there. So if you gave this recipe to somebody, would they understand it and what would they do? And if they read it and go, oh, I like it, I get it, here's what I would do, then you're on the right track. So I think that's what we measure this. We measure this that if we gave it to somebody, would they understand it without rapport issues? And what would they do?
I agree. And that also kind of relates to who we're giving it to. Like you asked who we're approaching, or another way to put that is who is our target market.
That makes a huge difference.
Yeah, for sure. If we went to a target market,
like if you gave a recipe for the kitchen to me, that would be different than giving it to my wife. My wife would read that and go, oh, it means this and that. And I would go, what do you want me to do? What is this? I don't understand this term.
Yeah, so I think that's an essential discussion to figure out what will be the target market or who we're talking to. And I see Rosmari edit, so I want to hear Rosmari speak in a moment. But maybe first I'll just say, just my thoughts about who our target market is, who we should focus most on. We have traction right now in a market that's a large market. Where we're talking about optimism in the wider Web3 space, people who are open to the idea of consensus games, and there's opportunities for Eden Fractal community members and people participating to earn funding and so forth.
I'll tell you why this is important to me, because I am launching products into the nonprofit space. So as we come up with this, I plan to show this to nonprofits and get their feedback, because that's a space that I'm already in. So, you know, that's part of my bias I have to overcome, because as we write that, I'm already thinking, you know, how do you show that to that market? But I realize that's not the only market. So I have to watch my brain from going there. But that's, you know, and it doesn't hurt to have a couple of those target things. Have you ever heard of it? You know, you've seen Old Navy store. Yep. They've created their customer and given it the name. I forget what it was, Sally or something. They all say, well, what would Sally do? What would Sally think? You know, they have that filter. They've created their persona of who their customer is so much they apply everything against that metric. So, you know, that's our question is, you know, who are we applying this again?
Yep, that's an excellent point. And yeah, I have a different kind of target audience that I've been, you know, working with and see potential in. So for sure, they'll hear it differently than the people who you're reaching out to. And I mean, one option that we always have is creating additional brands to speak to different audiences. But we also need to determine Eden Fractal brand with consensus. And also, I know Rosmari.
Yeah, you have to that, because we used to do Abercrombie and Fitch was a customer, you know, and if you're dealing with like the Gap, those people don't want the same. You know, younger people don't want to hang out with people who wear suits and ties, so you don't want to have the same brand. They don't, those two groups don't want to talk to each other. But in general, you don't want to do that. You want to have the same brand and change the product portfolio for different people if you can.
Mm-hmm. I agree. There's only about 4 or 5 minutes till the top of the hour, so we can wrap it up any time. Be good to hear from Rosmari as well. We haven't heard much from you, and I know you wrote mission out here, so I'm curious what you think about the discussion so far.
It's an interesting discussion. Thank you. Oh, I wrote my mission proposal. I think it's very it simplifies, in my opinion, what we do, or what Eden Fractal's mission is. It's our mission is to help communities and organizations reach consensus through decision-making mechanisms using research tools, events, and educational materials. In my opinion, this covers everything that we do, or very top line. And I think it's easy to understand by Sally. And if I was Sally and I didn't know anything about Eden Fractal, by reading this, I would have an idea of what to expect. But maybe it's my own version of Sally, to be honest. I don't know. I'm curious to hear what you
Sally?
think.
Sally's a random person?
Yes, Sally.
Yeah, Sally was the they call it an avatar. Some people do an
I added events in
avatar
there
is
because I think
a representation of your idea.
it's a representation of your ideal customer, Sally. Yes, I added events because I think this is key to what we do, and I didn't see this word. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't see it anywhere else in the other mission statements, and I think it's important to mention it because this is really in the essence of Eden Fractal, the events. That's it.
Well, for me, this is missing the replicable at all levels of society part. That we want to create something that is replicable and not just help individual cases, individual communities, and also collaboration. Like, how do we help communities?
Thanks for the feedback. I think to me, this is details. Replicable by all levels of society. I think this is, to me at least, sounds like additional detail that it doesn't need to be mentioned in the mission. Also, same thing with the collaboration. It can be, I think in most cases, when we talk about work done, there is some collaboration involved, and in a way, if I follow that train of thought, then all companies or most companies should have collaboration in their mission statement because they all collaborate to achieve something.
Within, we collaborate inside, but do we collaborate with external communities? So that's why I'm adding this and regarding.
I don't think this is necessary. This will be necessarily the case for everyone. For them to be successful, that they have to collaborate with other external communities.
But I think it's necessary for us to create a decision-making process that is replicable. Anyway, I understand, like, I guess you could argue if this is necessary to add the collaboration part, but regarding processes that are replicable, for me, this is not a detail. For me, this is how we could stand out. I think there are organizations which create tools for decision making and so on. And for me, that mission would fit those organizations as well.
I to be honest, I don't understand exactly what this means to be replicable at all levels. It's
It's a fractal.
yes, but it's a bit complicated to get it if I'm not in my fractal mindset at the moment. Like it may be too complex for someone to understand from without them knowing about it.
But for me, it sounds more ambitious at least. And I think this is good to have some ambition, like, even if person does not fully understand like how it's replicable. I think people can have some intuition about what it means, that it's something that you can take from one organization and use it for your community, let's say. And for me, I think I like a mission to be a bit more ambitious like that.
Okay. I'll stop here because it's starting we're at the time. And sorry for posting this in the late basically. It's the end of the meeting. I don't know if are we supposed to reach some form of consensus about anything?
It's optional. I proposed it as something we could do, but similar to last week, we just kind of had discussions going on. Of course, if we wanted to stick around for longer and try to reach consensus, we could. But we are a couple minutes past the time of the scheduled end of the meeting, so we could also wrap it up. Thanks, Rosmari, for
I would
sharing.
say probably we're in a good place block.
I'm sorry, what's that? Probably what?
I would say we're at a good spot next time to fill out that consensus block just by taking what we like from each of these and putting it in one block.
Yeah, maybe we can even think of
I think
some.
they're all pretty good. I think if we just take these, say, what do we like from Dan, Eric, Rosmari, Tadas, and put that in block and then turn it into one.
Yep, I agree. And it would be good to reach consensus about it, being that one of our the mission that we're aiming to do in our vision is to enable communities to do better decision making, for us to lead by example with that. We've discussed it 3 weeks now. We've made a lot of progress. So I'm looking forward to next week's meeting. Maybe we can even think of some different kind of little game where we can like maybe come to consensus about different parts that we really like, for example. Like for example, the idea about replicable at all levels of society, like perhaps even like 3 or 4 people could vote on that kind of thing. And we also, I don't know, maybe there's some different things we could do, like if we could figure out shorter ways to say some of these things. But I suppose we'll each have a week to work on this if we want. If you have some time to write it out, feel free to share it in the chat, and then we can come back next week and we can play another mission game. We can also discuss other things too, like if we wanted to discuss our target market or different things like that, that might be helpful as well. So feel free to make any proposal or share any thoughts. And I suppose we can wrap it up here. Anybody have any other thoughts you want to share before we wrap it up?
Sounds good.
Sounds good to me too. I'm starting to think more deeply about this, the replicable at all levels of society.
You can share your thoughts in the chat.
Okay.
We can discuss it. I can share more what I mean about what I mean there.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Well, sounds great. Looking forward to it, and looking forward to the next meeting and all the great discussions we'll have in the chat. And we meet once again every Wednesday at 16 UTC. So everybody's welcome to join.
I think I'm going to do I'm going to do a decentralization trivia today. See, it's on the calendar.
Oh, okay. Nice. Forgot to mention that's in like 3 hours. I think 1 p.m. Pacific, you
Yeah.
said.
correct.
Sounds great.
I'll go type, put it in all the things.
Okay, sounds great. Yeah, people can find the previous message you wrote about that last week and t.me/Eden Fractal and the planetary, the interplanetary Interplanetary Unconference Telegram group. I joined last week and it was very interesting. So thank you for hosting that.
By the way, we had a comic workshop that was between Ultra Rare and Lightning Works that I hosted on Monday. It was pretty cool.
Okay, cool. You broke up a little bit there where you said Unchair and Lightning Works.
I'll post that link too if anybody wants to see that. It was pretty cool.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you very much, Eric. Looking forward to looking into it. And yeah, everybody can feel free to share the links there and looking forward to seeing it. I suppose we can wrap it up. Encourage people to check out Eric's event. He's going to share in the Telegram group later today and on the next few Wednesdays. And encourage everybody to invite friends and looking forward to forming our vision or forming our mission together and then all the things we'll do together here at Eden Fractal. If nobody has anything else to say, then I suppose we can wrap it up with a quick go Fractal, go Eden Fractal on 3, 2, 1. Go Eden Fractal! All right, thanks everybody and see you next time.
Thank you.